Hello my dear friends, how are you? I hope I find you all in good health. I'm Arith and today I'm going to talk about the rune Dagaz. And I am quite happy to see you are still there with me. It's been quite the journey. We have finally reached the end of this rune series, and I know many of you were very eager to watch my take on each rune since I have started this rune series 3 years ago. As I've been telling you these past 3 years, each rune comes in due time. So, thank you very much for your patience and thank you for still being in here with me. I thought it would be fitting to end this rune series with the rune Dagaz for our last video of December of the year of 2020, the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new one. As I've explained on the previous video concerning the rune Othala, to me it doesn't make sense ending this rune series with that rune, and I much prefer to end it all with Dagaz. But it's not really the end after all. I have explained why I have chosen to end this series with Dagaz in the previous video. And in this video today, I'm quite sure you will understand why I have made this decision. As you well know, these videos of mine concerning the runes are a lot more esoteric, a lot less academic, that's for sure, and my own interpretations of the runes, right? But historically speaking, the rune row of the so-called Elder Futhark isn't actually clear if it ends with either Othala or Dagaz. As I told you before, the places of the rune Othala and Dagaz in a rune row isn't well defined and not obvious. Sometimes Othala is placed after Dagaz, as it was found in the Silverstone, as you well know it, but on many other findings it is actually placed before Dagaz, and indeed that makes a lot more sense to me, at least. As I said, this is the last video of this year, in this channel, of course. We are about to reach a new year filled with wonderful possibilities, new opportunities, new lives, new beginnings, a new hope. At the same time, I close my own rune series, so I can enter in a new cycle concerning the runes. After all, Dagaz is the rune of dawn and day and light, the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new era. If we carefully read the rune poems and if we pay close attention to the Norse myths, it's all about cycles. It begins with creation and life, it begins with birth, and then there is an extensive process of development, learning, living, experiencing until it reaches a point when life starts to slow down. There has been many ups and downs, but then existence reaches the final stages of its course, and with all the wisdom gathered through the experiences we have had, there is the well-earned rest, coming home, settling down and be aware that our own roots go deeper than the mere illusion we have of self-identity and social constructions. We become aware that our true roots are the roots of the mind, ever extending, not truly belonging anywhere, but everywhere. We are living memory that will be extended throughout the ages, through time and space, and always exist. That's when Othala, the rune Othala, comes into play, and we are ready to reach the end of the cycle. We are coming home. Which is why then comes Dagaz, finally, the new dawn, the new cycle, a new existence. The curtain drops, darkness takes over, and the light of the new dawn pierces the clouds, and there is rebirth, a new breath, a new life, a new hope. We are ready to do it all over again. This idea of a cycle of existence is attested in many mythologies, as you know it, and it is quite clear within the pagan mentality. There's no linear sense or conception of time with a clear beginning and a clear end. But indeed a cyclical process. It begins with birth, then life, death, and rebirth, finally, to start it all over again. The end of an era and the beginning of a new one after destruction, death, and decay. We let go of our previous selves, and there is a rebirth after letting go any sense of identity, letting go of the self-illusions about ourselves, what we think about ourselves and our identity, which is no more than a response to what our own social constructions dictate to be real or not. It's nothing more than cultural constructions. When we let go of that, we truly reach home, the place where we belong. And we realize that, after all, we do not live in a constrained universe with all sorts of natural laws and limitations that makes us choose a handful of narrow paths, but instead there are hundreds of thousands of different paths we could have taken, but we didn't, because we have the tendency to only choose what feels familiar and safe, what seems to be the best option according to the social limitations we have been inserted in and we have interiorized, and the fear of not being able to be accepted by the cultural constructions. So now we get to the point where and when we can truly choose every path we want, and indeed experience everything that is possible, because the places where we were born, the society where we have been raised or inserted, the morals, laws, values, notions, conceptions, and of course cultural constructions may represent us in certain aspects to a certain extent, but will never truly define us. We become free from structured systems of identity, and as such we find our true selves. And therefore there is a rebirth of the self, a new day, a new era, a completely new life. And that is Dagaz. That is enlightenment. No longer the necessity to seek a label, to seek an identity, to seek a place where we belong and to be inserted in a specific group, no longer the need to choose a path. With enlightenment, we know perfectly well who we are. We do not need a self-conception of identity. We do not need to become. We just need to exist. And for as long as we exist, we can take whatever path we want within the endless multitude of options that open up before us, because we no longer identify ourselves with something specific, and therefore we no longer need to choose a path that fits into what we used to identify ourselves with. We exist, we just are, and continue to be. Therefore, there won't be limitations imposed by the confusing deceptions of our cultural constructions. And we wake up from the collective nightmare of civilization, which gave us a conditioning line of thought in which we have created the perspective of a highly constrained universe. Dagaz is awakening. Dagaz is literally the day or dawn. For many pagan societies of the past, and perhaps none more so than the peoples of Northern Europe, a new day did not start at midnight as we comprehend nowadays. Instead, a day started with the rising of the sun, with the dawn, with the first rays of the sun that pierced the darkness. Nights may be longer than we expect, and many terrors assail the human mind in our darkest hours, and there's always the fear of not seeing another day. So when dawn comes, we know we have made it, and there's a new chance for us. There's continuation. We know that at least we have one more day, and the world is still here. We are still here. Each day is a new opportunity. Dagaz is the rune of awakening, the rune of hope, and hope is the force that makes us move and carry on, continue forward in search for a better life. a better outcome, the force that gives us enthusiasm and prevents stagnation. As we say around here, hope is the last thing to die, for as long as there is hope, there is life. If we sit down and give up, nothing will come to us. But if we set out with hope in our hearts, inevitably we will be face to face with the forces of the world, and we will learn, we will interact, we will change, and new opportunities arise. And there is hunger for life, a fervent impulse to cling on to life and continue to take a step forward, one at a time, each day, doing something new. The simplest and tiniest actions might not seem much today, but it is a step forward. And each little thing we do each day is always a walk towards personal evolution, personal development. The warm light of Dagaz is the warm force of hope, which gives us inspiration. And even without realizing it, embracing life and living it is already immersing ourselves in the magic of life. Each new day, each new dawn is a new opportunity, and it is always uncertain what might happen. And we may choose to see that uncertainty in two ways. Either fear of what might be in store for us, and so each day rapidly becomes insufferable, and hopelessness becomes a suffocating, cruel companion each time we open our eyes until we close them again. Or we can choose to see the uncertainty of each day as a surprise, as a new possibility, a new gift, a changing event that may or may not be good, but it's just another step towards enlightenment, because each day brings a whole new lesson, and there's always something to learn. Everything in life is a choice. No one chooses where, when, how, and why we were born in a specific place with specific physical features within this or that culture or within this and that society. But we can all make choices. Certainly, obviously, some have better opportunities than others. Some are more privileged. Some have more luck than others. But there are always choices, and we can either choose to cling on to what represents us, or we can seek out what truly defines us. No one chooses to be, but we can all choose to become and continue to exist. So each new day brings uncertainty, but within that uncertainty, we can always find ways to move forward and show the world, and most importantly, show ourselves who we truly are. As I've pointed out before, Dagaz is the new beginning. It is the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new one. If we look close into the very representation of this rune, perhaps we will notice this idea of a cycle. When we draw the runes, each one has a clear beginning and an end, clear points or edges. It reaches a point you cannot go any further, you can't go back. For instance, Hanzus, you draw it, there's a vertical line and two diagonal lines, it reaches an end in each point, right? There are only two runes that do not have a clear point of beginning or an end when you draw them. You can go forward or backwards and never reach a clear end or beginning, which are Barkano and Dagaz. However, Barkano has clear edges, there's a sharp movement, you can always go back and forth, right? But there are clear edges and sharp movements. When you draw it, there's a breaking of movement. It doesn't flow. Whilst Dagaz, on the other hand, becomes the only rune without a beginning nor an end. There is a smooth flow. You go in circles, you go back and forth, or go backwards, and there's never a clear end nor a clear beginning, and the movement becomes mechanic, automatic. You don't even have to think about it. It just flows smoothly. It's always connected, will always be connected, and there's no way of getting out of this flow of life. flowing of existence, always existing, like the symbol of infinity, right? Dagaz isn't just the rune of new beginnings. Dagaz represents the entire cycle of life, the point from birth passing through life and then death and finally rebirth to start it all over again, always existing, always flowing, no matter what. Precisely one of the reasons why I prefer Dagaz at the end of the rune row, because alone it represents the entire journey, the entire cycle. It is the point in which everything comes together and it is ready to start a new cycle all over again. It is the very representation of a new cycle of life. The previous rune, Othala, it has a clear point of beginning and an end. You move forward and flow through life and follow another path and reach an end. Even going backwards, you flow again and go out the other path and reach an end. The cycle isn't finished yet. It isn't put together. There's no binding. It isn't ready to have a continuous flow again. It isn't yet the end to start anew, but rather Othala is the preparation for the final journey to start it all over again. Whilst Dagaz is the clear path, all points coming together, converging, everything we went through and every piece of information comes together. There's a binding. It makes sense or starts to make sense. We are ready to end the cycle and start a new one. Everything that could have been learned and experienced, it was done. It has reached its limit, and now with Dagaz, it's time to start again and learn more. Everything we have learned, everything we have experienced, will be compressed in one single moment and be released to flow once again. The moment from darkness to light, from night to day, from death to rebirth. There's no clear beginning and no clear end, but simply existence. It will always exist. It will always be. There will always be life, memory, a conscious. In the Norse myths, even with the destruction of the world and all life, Ragnarok, it's not really the end, but just destruction of the old world, compressing all that ever existed, and in one single moment in the center, bursting, exploding. Thousands of scattered pieces just to be compressed again, and a new life is formed, a new beginning, a new dawn. There's only existence. It has always been and it will always be. The unbreakable spirit, the unbreakable consciousness. Thus, Dagaz is also the rune of timeless existence. There are no clear limits, no beginnings and no ends, just a flow through life. It will always be and always be coming. A continuous process of learning, boundless potential, the realization that we have been living a life within a society with clear cultural constructions that shows us that our entire space of existence has limitations. It is constrained to specific laws, rules, conceptions, and we come to the realization that all of that is meaningless. We come to the realization that such cultural conceptions and ideas of self-identity prevented us from seeing the multitude of paths we could have chosen. So we set ourselves free from such limited thinking, from such social conditioning thoughts, and we see reality as it is and as it is meant to be seen, as a multidimensional flowing web in a vast ocean of endless possibilities. When we realize that, we continue to flow without any type of thought that prevents us from moving forward. Dagaz is the light, it is awakening, realization, the new dawn, piercing the shadows and embrace the first rays of the sun and the warmth of hope, Dagaz is enlightenment. When we draw Dagaz, the flowing of the cycle will converge into a specific point, into the center, from time to time. It's a non-linear process, no true beginning, no true end, a fluid, ever-changing organic reality. At certain occasions, our paths converge into the center. Our thoughts converge into a center, making a connection, coming to the realization of an idea that becomes a life-changing event. And we are ready to continue to flow, always evolving, always developing, always learning, always shifting and never ceasing to exist. At the center, we find what we were looking for. There's a balance, an equilibrium that places us again on the right track so we can continue our progress. Darkness isn't something bad. The night isn't something bad. It's just a moment of stillness, a moment to rest or to ponder or to put the pieces together. We are not yet ready to wake up, and we must first learn and interiorize and seek deep within the reflection of our experiences in our subconscious. Then comes the day, the new dawn, the light, the awakening and the realization of things. We reach the center again, and we are ready to continue through the day. The cycle of a day until we reach the night again. And everything that we have learned and experienced must be interiorized in the moment of stillness. We wait, we reflect, we become knowledgeable, and the cycle never stops. The center will be reached again, and the night ends. The darkness is lifted, and the new dawn comes again. Yet another day filled with opportunities and new adventures and new possibilities. Perhaps the best mythological account to express the essence of this rune, Dagaz, is precisely the death of the god Balder. I have done an extensive video about the god Balder, but there is so much to say. Perhaps I should finish one of the dozen books I have started writing once and for all. Anyway, until then, the god Balder, the solar god of the Norse myths, he is described as radiant and handsome, considered to be the most beautiful god of them all, a bright god emanating a white light, very shining, very bright. Indeed, Balder is the god of light, a solar god, not particularly the personification of the sun itself, but the rays of the sun, the warmth coming from the sun, the energy of the sun, the child of the sun. One particularly interesting aspect is the connection Balder has with foresight. He is, by far, as I know it, the only god connected to oniromancy, which is, as you know it, divination based on dreams and also the use of and the inspiration of dreams to predict the future. Balder can predict the future and his own fate and part to play in the great events to come. Balder is the light that shines upon the world of the gods, and everything is more radiant with his presence. But he is plagued by his dreams, which quickly become nightmares, which are the heralds of disaster and destruction. He dreams of his own death and the consequences that follow, that will unfold the terrible events leading to Ragnarok. He knows, and the gods know, that if the light of the world fades, so does hope. And from that moment, only dark events will rise until the world is covered by darkness and destruction, death, violence, and decay. The gods are well aware that the death of Balder, the end of light, warmth, and hope, will unleash catastrophe. Loki had a part to play in all of this. The trickster spirit, which in many mythologies and native spiritualities is precisely one of the key figures that has the very, very important role in creation, destruction, and recreation. So Loki tricks the god Hodar, the brother of Balder, which by contrast is blind, a very gloomy god, always kept apart from all the other gods. The gods were absolutely focused on the beauty and radiance of the god Balder and completely forgot about Hodar, the night, the darkness, an essential element in life. Hodar is the god of darkness, by contrast with his brother Balder, the god of light. Now, Loki tricks Hodar into killing Balder, and thus the prophecy is fulfilled. There's no preventing what must happen. The death of Balder brings about the event of Ragnarok and the destruction of the world and the gods. Destruction must happen in order to have rebirth. Night and darkness must come as the heralds of a new dawn. Before the great doom of the gods, Balder goes into the underworld. Balder's death is essential because upon death he is sent into the world of the dead, and there he is kept safely within the earth. After Ragnarok comes to an end, Balder returns from the underworld. He resurfaces. He comes out of the earth, and as the poem within the Voluspa says, with the return of Balder, the barren fields will be green and alive again. It will bear life. Balder's return brings an end to all sorrow, and a new dawn comes, new light upon the world. Indeed, there is a rebirth, and a new world is created, the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new one. The god of light is murdered, and darkness reigns for a period of time. Balder dies, and darkness quickly falls, and fate cannot be prevented, and the gods know that nothing can truly be done to prevent the end of a cycle and the continuation of a cycle. For everything has a beginning and an end. But the end isn't synonym of ceasing to exist. It's just death, decay, and destruction to propitiate new life, continuation of existence, a new cycle. The night comes, there is darkness, there is stillness, there is rest, sleep, deep slumber, until the dawn comes again, and the rays of the sun shine through, and hope gives us enthusiasm, and enthusiasm makes us want to live and embrace each opportunity that presents itself to us at every new day. A cycle is over and a new cycle begins, always. With the death of Balder comes a long winter of darkness and cold, famine, death, everything lies in a dormant state, and then comes Ragnarok, the destruction of the world. But in the end, Balder returns, resurfaces, light returns, the energy of the sun returns the next day. The winter is over and the summer begins. And the earth is green once again. The barren frozen fields will bear fruit again. After Ragnarok, the myth tells us that in the beginning of the new cycle, part of humanity survives and returns to repopulate the world, feeding on the morning dew. And Balder, the god of light and the very warmth of the rays of the sun, will reign in this new cycle. Ragnarok is a beautiful motif of regeneration. It is the final state of the cycle of nature. It is death and destruction to propitiate regeneration, a rebirth of all things. From time to time, a shadow might fall upon us. Our way might seem dark, gloomy, and lonely, but light will always return, one way or another, sooner or later, because the world is always evolving, always developing, always changing, and we evolve with it. No matter what, there will always be a new dawn, a new day, new hope, and we carry on. We never dwell for too long in good times nor in bad times. We flow through the cycle, and eventually darkness takes hold because we need a pause. rest, a moment to ponder, a moment to grow and learn, a moment to shut our eyes and dream until the time has come to embrace light again, wake up and live, flow through the cycle once again. Day becomes the night and night becomes the day. There's no escaping darkness and there's no escaping the light. Each one of us bears darkness within, our very personal darkness, our very personal shadow. But we must not allow it to grow and become stronger than the light. We must not let it take hold of us in its totality. We have to remember that within there is also light, and we can't always escape it, just the same way we can't escape darkness. We have to try to create an equilibrium, a balance. Each shadow is a projection of light. Ragnarok is the moment in between, when the day comes to an end and darkness falls. It is the twilight. It represents the coming of darkness, the end of a day. Light fades and night covers the world, which metaphorically, the representation of the fading of the power of the gods of Asgard, which are gods linked to light, the power of the sun, order, the manifestation of the social life in a society, and the need to maintain order or everything falls into absolute chaos. The twilight itself is that very moment of the day between two realities, something that links two worlds, two phases of the day and night. So twilight is very much like dawn. It's the moment in between two worlds, two siblings. It is the center. Again, each shadow is a projection of light, and every light casts a shadow. Now let's talk about this rune when it appears in a rune reading. As you can see, there's no inverted meaning, or rather there is no inverted position for this rune, and it makes sense. It's a cycle, it's up and down at the same time. It is simultaneously life and death, birth and rebirth, a continuation of a cycle of existence, always flowing without a clear beginning or a clear end. When this rune appears in a rune reading, it signifies happiness and prosperity. However, of course, it also suggests that a major major changes will occur very soon, depending, of course, on the path you have chosen and the course of your life so far. That major changing event is the compression of everything that you have learned, everything that you have experienced. And now there is an appropriate outcome for all the knowledge you have gathered. There is an awakening, a total change of perspective. And from this moment onwards, you enter in a new cycle in your life. This is definitely the last rune that belongs to the initiation cycle, but also closes it. Dagaz often marks a major breakthrough in the process of change, a complete transformation of attitude, 180 degrees turn. For some, this transition in life is so radical that they will never continue to live their normal lives in any way they thought it was a normal way. Dagaz often denotes a changing in the perception we have of reality, a totally new worldview, and this new worldview will indeed change everything you perceive to be real, everything you thought to be the only possible truth. The foundations of your world were built on unstable ground. It is shaking, it is crumbling, and now you can approach the instability of the foundations of your previous worldview in two different ways. You can either assume that the ground and the foundations are weak and you let yourself sink with it, or this unstable ground can be molded once again. The foundations are actually flexible and it can all be reshaped, adapt, accustom yourself to the change. go with it and plant new foundations on that ground. Build a completely new world, a new perception, and you are ready to carry on into the new cycle. Dagaz appears at the right time. It is the right time, and the result here is assured without being predictable. In each life, in every life, there is at least one moment that, if recognized and used, transforms the course of that life forever. So give yourself over to total confidence. Give yourself to fearlessness, even if the moment suggests an empty-handed leap into the void. This is also a rune of laughter, fun, and new experiences. Dagaz is a good rune to receive in a rune reading if you have been suspended in a long period of waiting, as it signifies the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. A fresh burst of activity is to be expected when this rune appears in a rune reading. A new hope, the warmth and fervent energy of hope that gives us enthusiasm. A breakthrough following a period of frustration that exposes previous hidden information. Indeed, secrets are about to be revealed when Dagaz makes an appearance. It will motivate your actions and lead you into a position from which you can take an enlightened stance on any issue that troubles you. This new awakening, the new enlightenment, will give you the opportunity to plan for the future. After everything you went through, after everything you have done to seek a meaning in your life and a purpose that indicates that you should indeed continue to carry on and embrace life, Dagaz tells you that indeed the ultimate goal is to enjoy this transcendental state in every moment of existence. Never believe that you must settle for less. Every day there are new opportunities, new outcomes, and you should embrace every little victory by the end of the day. Even if there is a lot of darkness in you right now, even if you feel empty, completely alone, blind, absolutely forlorn, each day is a new day, and each step you take is a victory. If all you managed to do today was to get out of bed and eat something, that's a victory you should celebrate at the end of the day. You did it. You fought against the darkness in you. You fought against the shadow in your mind. And you live another day. Tomorrow there will be more victories. Celebrate each and every one of them, especially the small ones. We are all built differently. We all have our uniqueness. What works for one person doesn't work for another. And you don't have to feel down if you are not particularly good at something someone else is. We all have our own skills. We all know how to do something another person isn't that good at. Every day is a cycle, and you should celebrate completing another cycle. Each step counts, even if it's small or slow. Each one has its own time to do things. It's not a race. It doesn't have to be a competition. Enjoy every moment as best as you can. That is the ultimate goal, I think, to enjoy and take advantage and learn from every state in every moment of existence. Dagaz is the dawn. Dagaz is the twilight. It is the moment in between. It is the center, the cycle of time that encompasses both day and night. It is a transition from twilight to dawn and from dawn to twilight again. It is the shift from your old self into the new self, from the old state or condition into the new one. Dagaz in a rune reading indicates a period of transition, and the shadows are melting away, so that the light of the new day can come again and come in. A great period of achievement and prosperity is often introduced by this rune. Darkness is behind you and daylight is rising. However, you are reminded not to get lost in thoughts about the future or to behave carelessly in this new situation. In this time of transformation and transition, some serious work is needed. Do it happily, with laughter. Always try to smile because you know that it can't always be like this, and eventually darkness will take over again. But at the same time, that same darkness will lift again eventually. Be confident and have hope. However, Dagaz is not all about serious life path changes, and there is a strong element of fun in this rune. In some cases, it signals playtime because the new perspective that has been given reveals that life isn't all hard work and self-denial or staying strong all the time and carry on with your duty all the time. You may find new paths to explore with childlike wonder. A marvelous sense of humor is evident too, providing that life is worth living. As I said, there's no true inverted meaning or inverted position for this rune, so no inverted meaning. But rune readings aren't solely about the runes you have drawn and placed them in front of you in positions of whichever divination method you have chosen. Drawing of the runes, taking them out and their placement, can show different behaviors. If for some reason the rune Dagaz keeps falling or repeatedly turning face down, it signals the end of an era and warns that you may have to wait a while before the new beginning occurs. You might not yet be ready to open your eyes and wake up. Darkness is the prelude of something greater. Darkness doesn't have to be bad, as I've said. It's only bad and harmful if you let it take over and forget that darkness is just a stage before the dawn. Darkness can be a journey through the untamed wildness of your own consciousness. Darkness may be treacherous, of course, and you may find yourself face to face with the tests of inner conflict, and your spirit fights to unleash itself from this gloomy prison within your very thoughts. But never forget that the aim is to ascend into the true light to obtain fulfillment and happiness, a sense of worth, and finding a purpose. Hope is the key to the door that lies somewhere in the darkness. That key will shine until it becomes a torch and lights up the way until you find the door in the dark and you open it and you ascend into the light. The very thing that destroys hope is believing that there is nothing beyond darkness, believing that the day will never come again. What kills hope is denying the darkness that exists in every form of life and in every moment of each day and in every phenomenon of nature. Remember, the gods did not acknowledge darkness. They did not acknowledge the blind god Holder and kept him completely apart, forgotten. They did not acknowledge the night, the shadows, and focused too much on the light of the god Balder, and their world came down. Darkness took over, and they needed that darkness to understand that there is hope, and there is a new day, and that darkness can never be permanent. And so there will be a new dawn, a new light, a rebirth. If you try to deny the darkness that you feel, if you try to deny the shadows of your mind and focus only on the light that is not yet at hand, you will continue to be in darkness. Don't reach for the light when it is not yet at hand and you don't even know which way to go for now. Understand your darkness first. Learn from it. understand why this is happening, and then proceed, not trying to reach the light yet, because you don't yet know where it is, but proceed into seeking the way out so you can find the light. It is very important to acknowledge the darker aspects of life, because indeed it will strengthen our spirit. Always remember that the ultimate goal is to ascend into the light, not to wane and fade away in darkness. Each one of us take our own paths and we take our own time, but the ultimate goal is always the same. Hope is your best weapon. Alright, my dear friends, I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope that you have enjoyed this rune series these past 3 years. And finally, we reach the end of it. But it is not truly the end, is it? Of course not. This is just the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new one. Also, the last video of 2020 in this channel. So, I do very much hope to see you all next year. I hope you can continue to keep me company in this adventure, which is called living and learning. Please remember, hope is the last thing to die. Sadness, sorrow, anguish, fear, despair, loneliness, and death is never a permanent state of affairs. Sooner or later, there will be a new dawn. Trust in that and have hope. Enjoy, take advantage, and learn from every state in every moment of existence. Each day is a new opportunity. Each day, there will be a reason to celebrate your personal victories, no matter how small they are and no matter your own pace. Every day counts. Be thankful for every new dawn, for every new day, and the many opportunities and surprises in every new day. So, as always, tack för idag. Thank you for today.